You are probably in the sweet spot. I'm Joseph, this is Input English. The Input English channel provides comprehensible input for language learners acquiring the English language. Comprehensible input is arguably the best way to acquire English. If you need more information on how comprehensible input works, I have a lot of videos on that topic. I started with the speculation that you are in the sweet spot. So what's that all about? Well, first of all, it's good news because you probably are in the sweet spot. Let's start by defining our terms. The sweet spot is a term that we use in day-to-day metaphorically. It refers to an expression that came out of sports. Participants in sports frequently hit things like balls with bats, clubs, or rackets. And these players have noticed that if the ball impacts the racket or club in a particular area on that device, then the result is usually quite excellent. Hitting a ball in the sweet spot is usually very effective and successful. So we use the term sweet spot metaphorically in the day-to-day to indicate that you're in a great position and that you're likely to be successful. The sweet spot is actually similar in meaning to another idiom that I've provided in other videos, the Goldilocks zone. Basically the ideal position. So why would I say that you're in the sweet spot? This is actually contrary to a lot of messaging that you're getting online and on YouTube videos. There's a lot of complaining going on about the intermediate stage of language learning. People feel that they're not making progress. There's been some discussion about a plateau or a ceiling and some sort of barrier, and they can't get past that barrier. I would say that's all nonsense, not useful, and I would not consider any of those as reasonable. These are sensations and opinions being expressed online, but they're not really useful to us. Let's adopt a different point of view. Here's why. Anyone watching these videos is likely best described as an intermediate English learner. I don't provide any beginner content. So if someone is watching these videos, then they should consider themselves intermediate level English learners. What should we do as intermediate level language learners? Well, first of all, we should be patient. We have learned a lot already, and we are going to continue relentlessly learning more. But we need to be patient because language learning is not an event, it's a process. It takes a lot of contact with the language over a long period of time in order to make progress that you can notice. It takes time, and we need to be patient. The second idea on this is we should manage our expectations. Don't think for a moment that you're going to rapidly become fluent in any language. It doesn't work that way. Rather than building expectations and then measuring the distance between where we are and our expectation, it would be better to manage those expectations. We need to realize that rapid progress is not going to happen. So as we manage our expectations and we focus on being very patient, what we're trying to do here is avoid stress. If we as language learners are stressed out about the learning process, our efficiency goes down. We don't want that. So what should we do if we're in this sweet spot as intermediate language learners? What should we do going forward? I would direct your attention to your strengths. You have some advantages at this intermediate stage. Number one, you have your knowledge. I can break that down further. You have familiarity with the English language, so that's one type of knowledge in your favor. You also have your knowledge of the world. You have your overall knowledge, so you have knowledge about a lot of topics that can come up in discussion, in content, in videos. Your next advantage would be your interests. Anyone watching these videos has interests in other things, various other things. There will be a great deal of variety in the topics about which we are all interested. If you can identify the topics that you're interested in, then you can leverage them in your language learning. At the intermediate level of learning English, you are now able to use some native content. Not all native content will be very good for you, but some native content will be quite good for you. As you look at native content, not intended for language learning, but intended to inform native English speakers, use the resources I just listed. Use your knowledge of the English language. So when you view a video, judge whether it is within your grasp. If it's too advanced, move on. Don't waste your time. But if you can understand the story or the discussion, you might want to embrace that content. Look for native content that is about topics that you're interested in. Here we're going to the well. That's another good expression. If you go to the well or you go to the source, those are two expressions you will hear, you're going to the source of the original knowledge. You're going to an authority. So for comprehensible input, one of our great authorities on that subject is Krashen. And he has told us that good content for us should be comprehensible. We should understand it. It should be interesting, and it should be compelling. So as you look at native content, if you can find content that is interesting to you and you want to consume it, then that satisfies Krashen's recommendations if you can understand it. Once you've identified this type of content, you can use your other advantage, which is your knowledge of that subject matter. This I have done while learning Spanish, and this was something I actually observed when I was living in Austria. In daily conversations, my level of German was not very high, but whenever that conversation drifted to a subject matter that I was very familiar with, my level of comprehension actually went up. I found that I could attend lectures in German at the university with PowerPoint type illustrations, and I could understand the presentation almost completely. You can use your subject matter knowledge to make native content more comprehensible. If you look at videos in which people describe their experience or their methods for learning various languages, oftentimes they talk about watching cartoons, watching children's content. As an intermediate learner of English, you don't need to do that anymore. People use children's content and cartoons in order to get a grip, to get a basic grip on simple English. But as an intermediate learner, you don't need to do that. You can use content that is much more interesting. As an intermediate learner, you can be more selective. you can look for content that actually meets your criteria of being comprehensible, interesting, and compelling. At the intermediate level, people can watch videos that are best described as native content. They can follow a lot of podcasts, and they can read books with audiobooks or a proper book, a paper book, and comprehend it. Now you have to be selective. There are some books in English that are very difficult to read. Don't try to read Ulysses by James Joyce. You will find it completely opaque. It's very difficult for a native English speaker to read that book. There are a number of books like that. This is why I occasionally showcase a book, because I screen books to make sure that if I recommend them, they are realistic. Another nice thing about the intermediate level of English learning is as you do make progress, you can notice that this native content that you're choosing gets easier and easier. Now, this happened to me learning Spanish. Within 3 or 4 months of beginning my quest to learn Spanish using Comprehensible Input, I found a couple of interesting YouTube channels on topics that interested me. One was a photography channel, and one was a technology channel focusing on drones. These were both channels produced in Spain. The presenters spoke clearly, but they spoke as native speakers, not catering to my needs as a language learner. During those first few months of watching videos on those two channels, I had difficulty following them. Over the next year, from time to time, I would check back into those channels and see if their material was still opaque to me, see if it was still too advanced. Gradually, I observed that both of those channels got easier. Well, you know that the creators of those channels did not change their content. So if I say that those channels got easier for me, what I mean is my level came up to meet their level. I improved my level of understanding of Spanish enough that that content became relatively easy. Today, 2 years later, I watch those videos and forget that they're in Spanish. I just watch the video and I understand everything they say and enjoy watching that content. So as an intermediate learner of English, you can enjoy that same sensation. As your level improves, you can observe how much easier native content gets over time. The last thing about the intermediate level that I would showcase is this is actually a very enjoyable phase in language learning. If you were trying to learn a language for which there was little content, you could find the intermediate level very frustrating. But because of the huge quantity of good input available to you as an intermediate English learner, this is a very enjoyable time. And I would advise you to relax and enjoy it. I invite comments below, and if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.